Hola, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes, profe, bienvenida.
Buenas, gracias.
Buenas tardes a todos, les doy la cordial bienvenida a la clase de evaluación de los aprendizajes. Para compartirles los parámetros de las secciones por videoconferencia, las secciones se graban, pueden verlas nuevamente en la plataforma virtual. Les solicitamos que por favor silencien sus micrófonos y puedan activarlos cuando quieran hacer consultas o aportes con el permiso del docente. Le pedimos que mantengan su cámara activa. De no poder hacerlo, enviar su excusa por el chat de Zoom. De lo contrario, será retirada la sección y le serán restados puntos en la valoración del docente. Mi rol como moderador es facilitar y apoyar en la parte técnica. Consultas por el chat, personal o general. Les exhorto a tener bolígrafo y papel para hacer sus anotaciones y aprovechar al máximo esta sección que tiene una duración de 1 hora. Bienvenidos.
Hi guys, welcome to this third session. Let me share my presentation so we can start. Well, this is our third session. First of all, we're going to begin looking, we're going to have our prayer to begin the class. After that, we're going to have our objective for this session. We're going to talk about the instruments of evaluation. We're going to have an example. We're going to talk about what is an observation or observational evaluative technique. We're going to have the steps to follow in order to prepare one observation guide. We're going to have a pair work in order to apply it. Well, due to the situation that you're not here, it's difficult for me to have you do this and correct you right away. However, this classwork that we have been doing in classes, you should upload them on the forum. So I'm going to, this week, I'm going to open the forums for the class number 1, 2, and 3, so you can upload your classwork over there. Remember that this is going to be part of your evaluation. Then after that, we are going to talk about anecdotal records, anecdotal record discussion. I am going to present here a case, and we're going to talk about different options that we have in order to prepare this kind of technique or instrument to evaluate. Aptitude tests, and then we're going to talk about class notebook, exams, concept maps, essay, and research papers, rubrics, and then we're going to have a discussion about appropriate instruments of evaluation according to some things that we can see in our classes. So let's see. And finally, the wrap up to finish the class. Well, let's get started with our class. Thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you for our lives. Thank you for all my students who are not here, but they are doing their assignments or doing their duties. Help them to do their best effort and to accomplish their dreams. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. The objective that we have for this class is analyze and compare the different evaluation instruments and how to use them to assess students. So we are going to go a little deeper in the topic of evaluation instruments. Well, let's get started with this. The instruments of evaluations are super important in the educational process, because through the evaluation, you as teachers can see, can can measure the progress and can see the areas where your students have improved and where they need to improve. Traditionally, we are accustomed to test grammar exams or written exams where we evaluate through different kinds of exams or rubrics. These are the most common. However, there are other instruments that we can use. Well, let's begin talking about observational evaluative technique. Here, we are going to talk about these techniques and how to apply this evaluation. Well, through this evaluation, we can see different areas. For example, we can pay attention to the knowledge of the students. We have seen, we can see what skills they have improved, what attitudes they have through the content that we have taught. We can see the values they have learned, or we can listen to what they have learned through the activity that they have done, and how they use these knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values in their a specific situation. So they can apply it in maybe a daily routine situation. So this is what we can do through this kind of evaluation. For example, here we are going to talk about reading observation. For example, we can use this as a diagnostic or formative evaluation. First, we need to select the reading. We need to have the student read aloud. Basically, or we can, sometimes we do it not in front of the class, but we do it individually, depending on how many students we have or how long we have available to do this activity. But sometimes we expose the students to read in front of the class or from their chairs, from their place. After that, we need to check his or her tone of voice. So everybody should listen. We can move around in order to evaluate if it is easy to listen to the student. Number 4, observe his or her posture while reading. Of course, we can give them this observation evaluation as a diagnostic, just to give them a previous evaluation. And after, when we explain to them the way they should do it, we can do it again and we can compare. This would be a very good tool to see the progress. So first, do it to see how they are doing. And after, do it after your explanation, after practicing with them, giving them tips, so you can compare. Then you need to observe his or her eye contact while reading. This is a difficult technique, but you need to motivate them to do it because it is a very good tool for them to later in the future, if they are in elementary school, later in the future, they can have a better reading skill. Check his or her fluency while reading. Well, sometimes the most frustrating moment is when the student doesn't understand or how to pronounce the words, or the student is not clear about the words that he's reading. So let's try to choose a reading that is appropriate for the level of the student. That's just to be fair. Observe his or her point of view about the message of the story. After observing, then we can pay attention to what we mentioned before. Values. We can see how they are doing with this area. What is their attitude toward the situation and the reading? And we can see their opinion. We can pay attention to their opinion about the situation that is experienced or that is developed through the reading. Well, so this is an example of some things that we can pay attention in order to prepare a reading observation technique. Well, now let's talk about the steps to prepare an observation guide. Well, when you prepare an observation guide, first of all, you need to set your learning objective. It means that you need to be clear about the competence or the capability and the development during the activity that you want in your students. So you need to visualize where and what you want them to achieve. Second, evaluation criteria. The main purpose for the activity should be very well explained. You need to be clear and specific. You cannot give general instructions and then you evaluate paying attention to the details, because that would not be fair. You need to write down. I really recommend you to write down all the evaluation criteria that you will pay attention when you evaluate the activity. Then plan the observation. This is on your own, on your agenda. You need to talk about, you need to register when you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, how long you're going to take to evaluate the students, depending on your hours per week, and specifically when you're going to begin and when you're going to finish, or what day specifically you're going to do this. Probably if the group is very big and you see them 4 or 5 times, depending on your subject, you can take 1 week or 1 week and a half in order to evaluate all the students. And finally, observation guide. The observation guide is exactly what the student does. So you need to write what the student says or how the student reacts, every single thing that you observe according to what they say, what they do, how they move, etc. Well, now let's do our first interaction activity. Well, you're going to do it individually. You're going to make a list of 3 or 4 activities where observational evaluative techniques can be used. And then you're going to share your ideas on the forum, where I'm going to write exactly these instructions for you to upload exactly what you think of. I am going to, due to the situation that you are not here, I am going to give you my own examples. Well, in one activity where you can apply the observation evaluative techniques is, for example, when you want, for example, depending on your subject, no? For example, if you're teaching English and you're teaching the area of speech, maybe you can have your students prepare a recipe. So the process that you're going to pay attention, like bring your ingredients, very well organized, very clean, present the ingredients. After explain the procedure while you do it, it should be something simple. You cannot bring anything that is complicated. So all these things you need to explain before. So let's write here a recipe. So through observation evaluative technique, we can know if the student is clear about what to do and how to do it. Then another important activity that we could do is make a mock-up, depending on what you are explaining. Maybe you are teaching arts. Make a mock-up. And then you can pay attention to bringing the materials. If the student has all the materials that you asked to prepare the material, to prepare the mock-up, the steps, probably you give them the steps to follow. If the person is clear about the model, etc. So here we have to, another example that I can give you is do an experiment. Maybe you are teaching science. Well, in an experiment, the students need to bring their materials, need to know what to do according to what was explained before. So these can be good examples to prepare in class. Well, now let's continue with the next part. Anecdotal record. Well, when we hear anecdotal record, immediately comes to our mind anecdote. That's right. It is a report that describes specific facts or situations that are considered important for the students or for the class. The record details their behavior, what he or she does and says, attitudes, interests, or procedures. You need to prepare your form where you're going to write the child's name, the date where you're going to do this, the time that you're going to be observing. Maybe if you have 20 kids, you can dedicate 5 minutes to do this, or 10 minutes, depending on the time that you have with them. And you need to be clear what you're going to pay attention. Maybe if, for example, you are teaching preschool, you will pay attention if the student develops certain or specific skills like psychomotor skills, or develops or has achieved how to build things, or I don't know, depending on what you want to evaluate. Where you're going to do it, in the classroom, or if this is going to be done outdoors in another place that is not the classroom, that's also possible. And then what you as an observer will see. So you develop exactly, or you write exactly what he does or what he says. Okay. Let's talk about an anecdotal record. What do you see? What do you use it for? Think about that. What do you use it for? Or in what situation do you think we need to take this time? Because this is one of the techniques that teachers use less, because requires a lot of planning and requires a lot of time. This is the one of the reasons. But in what situation do you think you need to do this? How do you do it? Why do you have to use it? Is it easy or difficult? What areas can you observe? Physical, cognitive, social, emotional, language and literacy, creative art. Okay. So let's go step by step. Due to you are not here, I'm going to give you my point of view. What do you use it for? Well, you use it for cases where the student requires observation, specific observation, in order to refer this kid to a specialist, for example, the psychologist, or to help him with a specific specialist in any area. For example, if you see the kid has problems to see, if you see but you're not sure because you don't have a lot of time to observe, but you need to check, you can see if the student doesn't have hasn't developed the motor skills, the appropriate motor skills for his age, these kind of things. However, also the anecdotal record can be useful when we want to see if our kids or our children have developed skills, social skills, if they know how to socialize. For example, also anecdotal record helps us to evaluate more complicated things. For example, public speaking. That would be a very, for example, in high school, public speaking is an area where this technique will be very helpful. How do you do it? Well, as I mentioned before, we need to plan. We need to plan what we want to measure, what we want to assess from the student, when we're going to do it, how long we're going to evaluate. Are we going to do it in the beginning of the trimester, in the middle and at the end, or in the beginning and at the end? Usually we need to compare if there has been a change or they continue the same. We need to see the progress. So we need to pay attention to the criteria that we are going to develop, where we're going to do it, and why do you have to use it? Well, you as a teacher have to be clear that sometimes let's say our job goes beyond transmitting knowledge. Sometimes we have to observe other important details that are related to emotions and have to be related to other areas of the person. ¿Se escucha bien el audio?
Profe, el audio suyo sí.
¿Se escucha con eco?
Sí.
Ok, creo que hay un problema con el Zoom. Me veo ralentizada.
Profe, pero acaba de pasar como en este momento, ¿cierto?
Sí, ahorita me veo como ralentizada en la imagen. ¿Todavía se escucha con eco? Sí. Ok, ¿puedo salir y volver a entrar?
Sí, profe.
Ok, vale. Hola, ¿ahora se escucha mejor?
Sí, profe, ahora sí.
Ok, algo ocurre aquí con este Zoom. Bien, entonces, let's continue with the question, why do you have to use it? Well, in order to be clear what is happening with each of our students individually and how to observe details, we can use anecdotal records. Is it easy or difficult? Of course, sometimes it is difficult because we have many students and we cannot lose control of the class. So we need to create activities where we can observe while the whole group is working on something. What areas can you observe? Well, physically, we can see the movement of the hands, if they have problems as I mentioned before, to see, to listen, cognitive, if they need different explanations, or we need to repeat the explanations to specific students. So we need to, also we can observe through this part if they can socialize with each other. We can also see if they are emotionally stable or if they have developed emotional skills, if they have language or literacy problems. And also we can see or observe if they have creative art skills. So all of these things can be evaluated, can be assessed if you create an anecdotal record. Well, let's talk about an aptitude test. Well, when we talk about aptitude, we need to be clear that we're talking about skills or if the student is competent on an area. We as teachers cannot do this kind of test because this is designed to identify or predict what a person can achieve. These tests are usually administered by a psychologist or other specialist, depending on the area. So it's not a part of our responsibilities to do them. So don't get discouraged if you don't do it. It's not part of our work. Well, talking about our next, this is an activity. One of the instruments that we can evaluate. This is one of the things that we can evaluate in the student. The student writes everything he has done, either daily or weekly. We can evaluate notebooks that, notes that were taken in class, levels of understanding, if the student has abstract understanding, level of written expressions, clarity and property of expression, and also we can pay attention if the student has problems in spelling, calligraphy, grammar, composition, or sentences. So we can give recommendations. So when we evaluate a notebook, it's not only like, okay, has the first class, the second class, the third class? No, we need to pay attention to different things that we can collect from the notebook of the students. And then we can have our rubric, a specific rubric where we are going to focus on these areas. Okay, now let's talk about exams. Well, when we're talking about exams, we can have oral and written exams. When we are talking about oral exams, sometimes depends on the topic. Although most of the time we have written exams and we know they are monthly or they are weekly or they are bi-monthly exams or at the end of the term. It depends on what level we are teaching or where we're teaching. We need to pay attention to some things. the test has to be useful for the evaluation process. It has to pay attention to what we are teaching, how to collect this position in the process of the learning of the student, where the students are as a group, because we're not going to do it individually, but we're going to say, well, most of the students are very good at, or did very good in this exam on this area, but in this other area they were low. Probably they need to reinforce. So you create strategies where you develop new let's say new or extra practices where you help them improve on that. So through the end, probably if it is not in the same, if it is a final exam, you can do it at the beginning of the following bimester or the following term. So you can make a review or reinforcement, and then you will have a functional result of your exams. And these errors of the students should not be taken as a way to punish them. Like, well, most of you fail, you did terrible, I am very disappointed in you. No, we can never take errors as a way to punish or sanctionate the students. They don't have to feel disappointed. They don't have to feel discouraged after an exam. Like, I am going to begin with the students that got the highest points. And then after this person, all the other students fail. No, this is a very bad way of paying attention to the results of an evaluation. Never do that, because evaluation, remember, evaluation has to help you measure your evaluation, the evaluation process of the learning process of the students, and has to help you motivate you and motivate the students to maybe take another way to get to your objectives. Well, the concept maps is another instrument that we can use to evaluate. Concept maps helps our students to highlight the main ideas of a topic. Also, the teacher and the students easily can identify what is essential about the information that is studied in the class. Well, essays and research papers. Well, essays are very important in our classes. However, many teachers avoid essays because they say they require a lot of time to read them, but it's necessary. They are necessary because through an essay, a student can develop his or her personal opinion about a topic. A person has to investigate, has to get information, has to get knowledge about a topic, has to improve vocabulary, has to apply spelling, has to apply grammar, and all of this is in one activity. So it's a very, very important activity or very important technique that you can use to measure what you have been teaching your students. Okay, through an essay, your students expand their knowledge and apply in different ways what they have been learning. Okay, another important thing is that through a research paper, you are able to identify if the student is able to summarize, if the student is able to organize information, if the student is able to present that information in a very attractive way, or needs to develop this. Because in order to do this, they have to apply the information or the way that you have been teaching them in order to do them. So they need to follow instructions. They need to follow steps. If your students are not able to follow steps or are not able to follow instructions, then you need to reinforce or create other activities where they can do that. Rubrics. Well, when we're talking about rubrics, we're talking about a very useful, in my personal case, I think rubrics are the best because this is an evaluation tool that consists of defining the aspects that are valued in a task or skill and the levels of compliance. This is the best. So these criteria are placed in a table. As you can see here, you are your students, first of all, your students should be evaluated according to what you taught before. So they should know what you're going to, they should be clear on what you taught. They should be clear what you're going to evaluate. So the evaluation is how they're going to do it. And what you taught in class was what you taught, how they're going to do it, and then the evaluation is going to be the consequence. And then the areas are classified depending on what your objectives are. Remember, evaluation and objectives. Your objectives with the topic, your objectives with the content that you are teaching. Each level in the rubric is assigned a score. As you can see, you can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, depending on the areas that you're going to evaluate and the points that you are going to have in total. Then this represents a number. Every cell of the table explains what characteristics the student's work must meet to be assigned that level. So with this, your students, the students should be given this before the evaluation, before the moment of the activity. And you are going to be very clear in the moment of evaluating according to the descriptions of the areas that you're going to evaluate. So for example, if you're evaluating a speech, you need to explain to them, okay, the speech is going to be about environmental an environmental problem. You would say air pollution. This is going to be the speech about. And then you need to explain to them, okay, you need to investigate about this. You need to explain this and this and this. Okay, so in terms of content, manages the topic if you present this. Also, you explain that they should be ready, so their fluency should be good. They should not be stopping, like thinking about the next word. They need to be fluent. Also, they need to be ready to answer questions. Or also, you can include here, you need to prepare your visual aid where you have colorful and big pictures. This is an important point because sometimes they create a visual aid that has very little images. And if you compare that with another student that has big pictures where everybody can be illustrated about the topic, then you can make the difference. So you can have a reference. So you need to be very clear, specifically what you're going to evaluate in your assignment or in your activity in class. And in that way, your rubric is going to help you to do it, to do the evaluation faster and to be fair. This is what you should look for, always being fair with the students. Another example of rubrics, it can be that here, it would be good that they print their rubrics before the day of the evaluation. So when they come, this rubric has the name, has the grade, has the name of the project, and the areas that you already developed here are, for example, following project directions, use of creativity, behavior in class, effort put into project. Okay, excellent. All directions were followed. You used your own ideas and imagination. You were respectful and well-behaved. You took your time and worked hard on the project. Okay, this represents 4. And number 1, needs improvement. None of the directions were followed. You did not use your own ideas or imagination. You were not respectful and behaved poorly. You rushed through and did not work hard. So what does it mean? That you will assign the points according to these areas, and you will do it quickly through the time that your student is speaking. If your student has any complaint about something, you can write down specifically what he did and what was supposed to be done. What he did. You can write exactly what he did. Then if the student has a complaint, then you say, okay, look at what I wrote. You follow, or you didn't follow the directions, all the directions. Okay, so what didn't you do here? You didn't bring visual aid. Okay, so you have minus points. So these kind of things are very useful for the students and for you. Also in the comments, you take advantage of this area to write something positive first. Never begin with a negative comment. Begin with a positive comment, and after you can give your recommendations, or you can give feedback. You can give your feedback about the result of the project or the activity that the student did. So try to make the sandwich evaluation. Good, not the recommendation, what the student didn't do well, and something motivating, like you can do it better next time, or keep trying, or take advantage of your time and investigate more about this for next time. I'm sure you will do it. Things like that. So in that way, your rubric is going to help you. Well, now let's talk about these specific activities. Right next to the activity, what instrument or instruments of evaluation you would use and why. Well, here we have we have 5 different we have 5 different activities that we normally do. First, a speech. As I mentioned before, for me the best is a rubric like this. Every student brings the rubric. If the student doesn't bring the rubric, well, cannot present, or you can say, well, next time you will present because you don't have your rubric evaluation. So they have to stick it in their notebook, so you have proofs for the evaluation of the notebook. So all of these things are useful. Make a recipe. Well, in order to make a recipe, you can make an anecdotal record. And in this case, you can see if the students fulfill the process, follow the steps, did the experiment, or did the project in the way it was supposed to be done, etc. Reading. Well, to make for a reading, also an observational evaluation. You can have the reading. Simple past tense usage and context. Well, a test could be good, or a speech. Through the simple past tense, you can evaluate the students with an exam or a written exam. And you can apply, if it is oral, you can use a rubric. And for the exams, try to use different parts so the students can put into practice different skills, not only choose the best answer or not only yes, no questions. So try to mix them. Plan growth stages. Okay, this is an observational anecdote, observational evaluation, or anecdotal. Oh, well, observational evaluation would be very good because they need to share their anecdotes. They need to see what they observe. So through this, you will create a form that they have to fill out depending on the process or the steps that they have been learning in class. So plant growth stages, I think everybody has done this. And it is something very cute for the students because they have to take care of the plants, they have to observe the details, the changes, and they have to pay attention to the little details that they were observing in a book, but now they have physically. So through these instruments, you can easily observe what are the results of your evaluation, where your students are in the process of learning. You can see where you need to reinforce, where you did well. And remember, if your students didn't do well in the exam or the evaluation, means that you need to reinforce the way you communicate instructions. You need to reinforce the way that you are teaching. The skills that you are helping them to develop has to be done in another way. So you need to change the different instruments, the different activities that you're doing during the classes in order to help them. So it's not only their work, it's how your work is being done. So the results of their evaluations is also a very good way to measure the way we're doing it. Well, basically, this is what we're going to see today. Well, in 1 minute, let's see what we have been doing today. Well, today we have gone through, as the objective of the classes, we have analyzed and we have compared different evaluation instruments, and we have tried to see how to apply, how to assess the student. So we see that evaluation instruments are the way to see where your students are located in the process. Observation evaluation techniques are very useful. For example, in reading observation, in processes, in different activities, you need to follow these steps in order to prepare it very well. You need to be clear about it before you explain it to the students. Anecdotal records helps us to identify details that are into skills, motor skills, or emotional skills, or cognitive skills that we need to pay attention also when we are teaching. Anecdotal records also help us to see if they are developing language and literacy. If we're teaching English, this is super important. And we need to see that the aptitude tests are not part of our evaluation because we are not psychologists. We are teachers. So this is their part of their own, or we can make the comments to the administration of the school in order to help the students in areas of psychology or other specialists, like to see their vision or make sure improve their listening, their hearing, with a specialist about these areas. Okay, we talk about the class note, and in the evaluation of the class notebook, we need to pay attention to other things, not only like, okay, let's fill out this with another grade. Okay, let's evaluate the notebook. No, we need to take advantage of this time to pay attention to details. We can create a rubric in order to do this. Pay attention to details like I mentioned before: clarity, propriety of expression, spelling. When we talk about spelling, also we need to recommend other activities to improve calligraphy. Also, we can evaluate grammar, composition, sentences, other things. We talk about oral and written exams, how they help us, the maps, what are the benefits, essays and research papers, and rubrics. So these are the instruments that will help us to evaluate. Okay, as a reminder, well, we need to pay attention to the previous classes. Some of you have not watched the classes, so I recommend you to take your time. On Monday, probably you are going to have day off, and I recommend you to watch the first class, do the assignments that you were assigned for the first week. We are finishing today the second module because the first module was covered in 1 week. The second module had to be covered in 2 weeks. And today we are in the third class. So you have until this week to catch up with the module number 1, module number 2, and try to do all the pending activities that you have on the platform in order to don't accumulate more work, so you can be relaxed at the end of the course. It's important that you also upload your practices, your classwork, what I have been doing, because actually you have never been in my classes, so I don't know who you are. I don't know, I cannot give you feedback, I cannot answer your questions. I don't have that opportunity to do this interaction with you. So let's take advantage of the forum to create this contact, or to have this part or this session where you can ask questions, where you can develop ideas, where you can share your ideas with the material that we have seen in these 3 classes, because today we finished the 3rd class. Then read the content of the unit number 2, do the activities, also watch the videos. Remember that you can watch the videos 1, 2, or 3 times, or 4 times if it is necessary, but watch them and solve the activities that you have after them. Well, with this, we finish for today. Thank you very much for attending. And be careful with the pendings. Be careful with the accumulation of documents or papers that you have to develop, because we want to help you, but you need to also look for the time to do it. Well, I hope to see you next class. Have a very good afternoon.